Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Coder Conversations. If you missed any previous episodes, visit us at www.coderconvos.com. I'm Kevin, and I'm here with my co host, Brian.
Hey, this is Brian Russick, professional drummer, drum teacher. You can find me on the web, www.brianrussick.com.
And tonight we have an incredible guest, Tommy Morin, pastor, comedian, artist, and more. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. We
Uh,
finally did it. We had a little
yeah,
technical difficulty, and it was definitely driving me bonkers. But
yeah,
we're here,
yeah, we
and
We're
I
made
didn't
it.
here.
shave. I do apologize. I didn't shave. I had
Uh
no idea. First of all, I had no
oh.
idea Kevin was so good looking. That's scaring me right there. So you should be very
Yeah.
happy that I'm happily married. And then secondly, I'm wearing the hat, so I'm incognito. But
Oh, yeah.
I'll do a quick. So this is what I normally look like. The hair is usually doing the thing. But now without the cheaters, I can't see you. So I got to put those back on. And here we go. And that behind me is my original artwork. That piece behind me actually is 40, uh, 42 years old. I did that back when I was in college. And then I got another piece above me. That one right there. The let's see if I can get it shot. Yeah, that
Oh,
one
yeah.
I did that last Christmas. That's my ode to Jackson Pollock. My family hates that picture, which is why it's behind this one. So
Awesome, man. Yeah, you have a lot of talents. What do you predominantly identify yourself as, first and foremost?
um, him and he. I'm kidding. So uh, you know what? It's a good question because I was one of those guys who as a kid, I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. Ever, ever,
Right.
ever, ever, ever.
So
I never,
you weren't like, okay, I want to be a fireman. I want to be an
nothing. No,
astronaut.
no. I wanted to just enjoy every moment. And I did, some for the good and some not so good. And when I say not so good, I made it. Actually made it alive out of the '80s, which is pretty incredible. That's how
Right.
old. That's how old I am. So
Yeah.
Um, but I just never knew. I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I just kind of like every day was just another day. I told my wife a little while ago. I said, with all the stuff that I do, whether it's stand up, whether it's preaching, whether it's my artwork, I'm like a Renaissance man. And she said, "What's a Renaissance man?" I said, "Well, all the stuff that I do now is worthless, but when I die, oh man, you're gonna be rolling."
You're going to be
And my
rolling in it.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, my wife looks at me and she still to this day denies it. And I thought she said, "When are you dying?" So, but I guess I would just say first and foremost, I am an evangelist. If I was to qualify myself in one category, and then kind of everything else that I do is a reflection of that in some way. And so when I'm doing stand up, I don't proselytize. I don't usually preach. I just try to bring the funny. When I'm preaching, the funny kind of comes out. So I'm not a
I would
necess-
imagine.
I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily a doom and gloom. I'm not a hellfire and brimstone, but I'm a storyteller. And so whether I'm doing stand up or whether I'm preaching, and then when I do my artwork, that varies. I might express my faith, I might express the season, I might express whatever the case might be at that time. So to answer your question, Kevin, first and foremost, I am an evangelist, and then the other hats I wear afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also a follower of Jesus first and foremost. So were you always so rooted in your faith, or did that come at a specific period in your life?
Yes, that came, and I know I definitely did not grow up in the church. I wound up coming to the Lord March 15th, 1992, 33 years ago. And before that, kind of in and out of. of church here and there. I am Hispanic and Italian, so it was predominantly a Catholic upbringing. Um, I went to parochial school, started part of my life in Jersey. I was born in Panama. My dad was in the service, came to the country when I was 6 months old.
Oh, wow.
My dad used to teach English to Spanish soldiers in the Panama Canal Zone, which was considered at the time U.S. Territory. And so
Oh, wow.
my dad and my mom met at a big soiree on the base, a dance. They fell in love. A few months later, got married. A few months later, I had me, and then about 6 months later, we moved back to the States. My dad's originally from Hoboken, New Jersey, and I grew up till I was about 12, 13, living in New Jersey, right along the Hudson River. So I could see New York from my house uh, as well as you can see me through this video.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah.
I'm in Long Island.
Oh, okay. So my relatives are from Bayshore.
Oh, Bayshore. Okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty close. I'm in Ridge.
Oh, okay.
I'm out in the
So
woods.
yeah, you are in the
I'm
woods.
out in the woods. There's no lights or anything.
Wow. So yeah, but like I said, um as I got older and I got into some things, and my life was kind of going in a very specific direction that was not super positive. It was about 18, 19 years of age when I finally decided, Kevin, what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so that was, I wanted to be a mobster. That was the only thing that was on the forefront of my mind. And I wound up, my mom lives on the West Coast, and I wound up meeting some friends and some childhood friends from like my early teens until my 20s, who introduced me to some uh, specific people who were part of the West Coast of organized crime. And so when do you see? I'm doing well keeping names out of it, and it's hard to not do that, but I'm doing my best. I'm sure I'm going to blow it, and then I'll probably go missing as of next week.
That's
But
right.
I wound up ingratiating myself with them and them with me, and it was wonderful. It was like finding a family. It really was like finding a family. Just everybody loving on everybody. And then on the East Coast, I left California and I was in New England. I actually went to the University of Rhode Island, and I had some friends there who knew some people in the Providence area. And then I started connecting myself with uh, people that were part of organized crime in Rhode Island. And I just was falling in love. It was the best, I thought at that time, the best life ever. And um, I did a lot of things that I regret. And people have asked me, how were you not able to, how were you able to get out and not get lost in it? And I didn't know like secrets. I didn't know um, things that would jeopardize my safe. I wasn't that far in. I was kind of on the outside looking in. And so when I
Okay.
decided to not continue that lifestyle, it was an easy walk away. Um, I
Nice.
don't forget when I was in school, I had a summer job. Like everybody, you're in college, you have summer jobs, and whether it's working at a restaurant or whatever, painting.
Delivering
Um,
pizza.
yeah, I actually had a job collecting. That was my summer job. And so I would go to different businesses and pick up, I'll never forget it, these little square sandwich bags of money. And I was told specifically, do not open these bags of money, put them in a larger grocery bag and bring them to this club, this Italian club. And so that was what I did for the summer. And so I would go to these different businesses. They would give me like a little brick of money in a sandwich bag with a rubber band around it. I would stick them in this grocery bag and then drop it off after my pickups. And then at the end of the week, I would get $500 cash. So, I mean, $500 cash
Wow.
to a college student in 1983,
A
that was
lot of
like a
money.
million dollars.
That's a lot.
So it
It's a
was,
lot
yeah,
of
it was.
money.
I was
Yeah.
rolling. It was like this is the
Yeah.
best ever. And so I wound up doing that, and then eventually, I wound up. I don't know if I said this already, but I mean, I wound up hurting a lot of people, and I have the receipts. They're all over my hands, the scars on my hands, and I got a nice one on the side of my face over here. And I had my fanny handed to me on a silver platter plenty of times. I didn't get off scot free. I was no Superman, but I did. I did a lot of things that I regretted. Um, and then when I decided to get out, I was like, okay, what do I do next? What I don't even know what to do, because I was, believe me, just because I was at URI, I was not a student of URI. I was just living on
Right.
campus. I was just going through the motions, and
Going through
I
it.
thought I was living
Yeah.
the dream. I was
Right. Right.
going to the parties and running after girls, and that was my life. So again, I found myself a little boy not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. Everybody's on campus like, "Oh, what are you majoring in?" I had no
Yeah.
idea.
What are you
I,
gonna
wa-
do, pal?
I was clueless, man. I was clueless. So I'll never forget. I wound up minoring in textiles and marketing, which it basically is fashion. But I thought, you know what? The odds are in my favor because there's going to be a lot of women taking these
Women.
classes.
Yeah.
And that was my only focus.
That was the
So
focus.
that was the focus. So,
Nice.
but somewhere a little bit after that, I wound up leaving school, moving back to Manhattan. I got into the garment district, which then again introduced me to, uh, now a New York kind of family, to say the least. And I was like, oh, so I'm back here again, maybe. And I was kind of rubbing elbows with a few people in New York, and I thought, oh, okay, uh, maybe this is my destiny. Maybe I'm supposed to do this thing. Wound up coming back to New England, and there, my friend who became my business partner wound up, convincing me we should do a comedy team. And believe me when I tell you, I was not that kid that wanted. I mean, I used to make everybody laugh when we were kids, and when I would go to my grandparents' house, when on Sundays we would go for dinner, there'd be like 30 people surrounding me in my grandparents' living room, and I would put on a show like da 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 da. It was just like,
Nice.
and everybody would laugh, and it was like, oh, Tommy's going to put on another show for us. But I never thought like, oh yeah, I'm going to grow up to be an entertainer. That's what I'm going to do. I just never had the foresight
Like it
to.
was just natural to be
Yeah, it
funny.
was just like a thing I was doing.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, this is just me. I am, and I was very influenced when I was a kid watching Jerry Lewis and Martin and Lewis and Laurel and Hardy, Charlie Chaplin, and so a lot of comedy. And then it just became part of my personality. Where if I was at a party or if I was in a classroom, I was the class clown. But but I never thought like, oh, I'm going to be a stand-up comic. That was never ever on the table.
Because that's kind of
So
obscure
way like it's
to the
like so like
mainstream.
who
Yeah.
thinks that? Like nobody.
To the
It's like, you know what I
mainstream
mean? Yeah, people are
person.
like, oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a
Yeah,
lawyer. I
right.
want to help people. Nobody gets up in the morning and goes, at the age of 6, I want to be a stand-up comic. At least nobody I knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
So
like Jerry Seinfeld, maybe, but
yeah, maybe Jerry Seinfeld, but not me. That was not
not
even
you.
on the
Yeah, not
radar.
you.
So when this buddy of mine introduced me to, was the same guy who actually um, knew some people that actually was helping me get connected to some of the people in New England. And then one day he just said, "Hey, uh, what do you think? Maybe we should do like stand up, because the two of us would make everybody laugh wherever we went. So if we were out clubbing with some friends of ours, it'd be like 15, 16 of us, and we were the only two making everyone laugh. Everybody be falling off their chairs." And so we wound up forming a comedy team called Cato and Morin. And my partner's name was Steve Cato. Um, and we wound up jumping into stand up back in 1988. We did an open mic. We had practiced night after night after night for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Jumped in, did an open mic in Providence at a place called Periwinkles, which no longer exists. It was in what was called an atrium in the middle of downtown Providence. So you're in like this kind of a mall situation with like a glass ceiling. Really cool, cool. I think the atrium's still there. Um, and then there was this comedy club in the atrium in this little mall area, and we wound up doing our first night together, and they gave us a standing ovation, and we
Wow.
wound up going back the following week with a whole brand new 3 minutes. They gave us
Yeah.
another standing ovation, and then we wound up doing that for 4 weeks in a row, coming up with new material every single week. We had another 3 minutes. One day, one of the comics who were kind of hosting the show said, "Hey, you don't have to keep writing new material. You can keep working on the same." And we're like, "Oh, that, wait, nobody told us the rules. We didn't
Yeah,
know.
right.
We didn't have no idea there were rules. How
We
there's
didn't
no like
know.
blueprint, right? It
Yeah,
was
right.
1988. Nobody knew nothing about nothing.
Nobody knew
So
nothing. Yeah.
we wound up entering a contest shortly after that. About 6 months of doing open mics, we wound up entering a competition called the Johnny Walker Talent Search, and it was a national talent search, the precursor to Last Comic Standing. So this was
Right.
long, long time ago on Arts and Entertainment, which was known as A&E on cable. There was a show called Evening at the Improv, and the improv, which is still iconic to this day, there are improvs all over the country, was the brainchild of Bud Friedman, who wound up having the first improv in New York and then moved out to Los Angeles and started this cable show. And so, Evening at the Improv and Johnny Walker, the whiskey, partnered and then toured the country looking for talent. And so, one of the craziest things was we entered this competition. 106 comics show up on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. Like comics don't ever see 9 o'clock in the morning. Never,
Never.
ever,
Never.
ever.
Yeah.
9 o'clock at night, yes. 9 o'clock in the morning, not so much.
Not so
So
much. Yeah.
we wind up. There was 106 comics showed up that morning, wrapped around the building of what today is called Nick's Comedy Stop in Boston. So we entered into this competition, and here are these two guys who knew nothing about nothing wind up um, wind up coming in third out of 106 comics.
Wow.
It was crazy. The phone would not stop ringing. However, people got our phone number, the next day, our phone was literally ringing off the hook. And it was a strap yourself in ride because it was like a bullet train. We went from open mics, and we were prop comics back then. So never mind two guys, um, a comedy team. Now, I'm 6 feet. My hair was about another 5 or 6 inches up top with a lot of Aquanet, and I was
Yeah.
in black all the time with a black T-shirt, black uh, biker jacket, black pointy cowboy boots with a little steel tip at the front, with black jeans on. And my partner I'm 6 feet tall. My partner was probably 5'3", maybe 5'4", and he looked like Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he would wear the sport coat, and he would be like kind of, there was this dichotomy of the visual. So the visual enough was, you know, a complete distraction. And then we were super high energy. We had props. We would do parodies on movies and television, commercials. So we were super high energy props. The visual was an anomaly in itself. And we wound up becoming um, middle acts, not even opening acts. We completely bypassed that process. We became a middle act from an opening act within a matter of months. And then after that, it was really a matter of only a few more months before people were using us as headliners because nobody wanted to follow us.
Wow.
And I'm not saying we were better, we were just so different that if you're a stand up and you're just holding the mic and you're doing, this kind of thing, there's no way you're going to follow all that energy. There's just no way. And this is at the boom. They were talking like late '80s, early '90s. This is what back when comics were like rock stars, and everywhere you
Right.
went, there
Right.
was there was a comedy show. Denny's, at a restaurant, at a bar, everywhere you went, everybody was doing stand up. Not just the mainstream nightclubs, but everywhere you went. And
That's
so
crazy.
it was a crazy, crazy time. It was amazing. It was an amazing time.
Could you
Um,
give us a sneak preview of some of the material that you were working
yeah.
on
So
back
like,
then?
one of the things, my partner would always be the man on the street. He'd be like the reporter, and I'd be like this crazy buffoon. And so one of them was, we did a dating game where became all three characters, all three bachelors. If you remember this old dating game show, I mean, obviously I'm dating myself. I'm 60 years old. You guys are quite a bit younger than me, but um, the dating game was, somebody was behind a wall. You had three bachelors. The gal would walk out, ask questions, and then she would have to pick. Okay, who do you want? Bachelor number one, bachelor number two, bachelor number three, and then they come around the wall. Oh, okay, we're going to send them on a beautiful romantic weekend, whatever.
Right.
So my partner had all the questions asked, written down, and I would be each different character. So I would be like a nerd, I'd be a tough guy, and then I'd be maybe, some other ethnic background if I was like a sous chef at a Japanese restaurant, or some different character, and then he would just be doing the announcing, and we would pull a lady out of the audience. And then in that moment, it's like the entire audience is actually on stage with us, because now you're taking down this wall and you're allowing the audience to actually be, by pulling out one of them, you're allowing the audience to actually participate in this complete mayhem that was taking place. And it was devastating. It was crushed. It crushed. We actually went to the first time we did that, we actually had went to New York headlining for the first time. We'd already been headlining in Boston, every single club in Boston, and that actually took place in a year and a half. So from the very first day that we went on stage as an open micer, we were headlining within a year and a half.
So it was like a rocket.
It was lightning. It was a
Lightning.
rocket.
Yeah.
It was a
That's
rocket. So
amazing.
so now we're in New York, and we in New York at the time, you would do five shows on a Saturday, six shows on five or six shows on a Friday night, 6, 7 shows on a Saturday night. But what you would do is you would go from one club 2 blocks down the street, you do another club, then you go back one club, then you go back you do back and forth, show after show after show. You do 20-minute spots, so you were banging out like show after show after show, but you were getting paid $50 a show. But it was the idea that you were in New York, like
Yeah.
you owe us, we don't owe you. And so,
Yeah.
like the song says, you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And that was the mindset back then. Obviously things are so different with social media, and I mean, you don't have to go anywhere. You just put something on a post, and the next thing you know, you go viral. Now you're a sensation. But so the first night when we were in New York headlining, thinking, "Oh, we're big shots from Boston. We're gonna destroy. We're gonna crush." You
Yeah.
already know where
Right.
this is going. You already know where
Right.
this is
Right.
going.
Right.
In
Right.
the toilet, it was toilet show after toilet. It was bomb after bomb. And we never bombed. So for us to be bombing was like a whole new universe for us. And we're looking at each other like putting the blame. I'm putting the blame on him. He's putting the blame on me. It's like, this is your fault. This is your. I mean, it was just
So
this
so why
tsunami that was
was
taking
it
place.
why was it happening, do you think?
So the next day we wake up, and we were going to do this up. So we stayed at the Marriott Marquis, spending all sorts of money because we're making our big introduction to New York. We want to be memorable, and we're staying at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. And we woke up the next morning, and it's like 12 in the afternoon. We've got another 8 shows that night, and we're looking at each other. And I remember looking at my partner Steve, going, "So, any ideas what you want to do tonight? Because whatever we did last night is not working. Time to come up with some." So we wrote the dating game that day. Never tried it. Had never seen the light of an audience. Never on an open mic, and it devastated, like destroyed. It was the most incredible feeling I have ever had. It's just like, how is this even happening right now? And
Yeah.
they went to
Awesome.
their feet show after show after show after show because New York wanted to see performance. They wanted to see an engagement. They were, it's a very theatrical crowd. They want to be challenged on every level. And so when we're like introducing me, pseudo acting, they were like eating it up like birds at a park with bread, crumbs of bread. It
Right.
was incredible. So all of a sudden, the guy who's running the show, there was this great room called the Village Gate. The Village Gate, iconic, historic. Now it's a CVS, but they still have the old marquee, or the old. I think they still have the name above the CVS. 'Cause it was just such a play, and everybody started there. I mean, uh, Richard Pryor was there. Oh gosh, now I can't even think. Lenny Bruce was there. I mean, on and on and on and on. And so it was just one of those places, and they had two stages, a front room and a back room. And if you were in the back room, that was the big stage. You made it. So
Now,
we were in the back room.
what about like, like a Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah, so Dangerfields was not too far from where we were, and but this is the only club in New York that I never performed at. But Catch a Rising Star, the Improv, Stand Up New York, Caroline's at the Seaport, the Boston Comedy Club, which doesn't exist anymore, the West End Comedy Club, which was actually in the upper upper West Side, which was actually right near Columbia University. We had um, actually a show that we would do every Monday night. It was a Cato and Morin show in New York. So we actually had our own show in New York. Talking like 2 years of doing stand up, and we're hosting our own show in New York City. This is like mind blowing. Like,
Yeah.
who? Who does that happen to? And you're talking like, again, no social media, no nothing. This is old school. And I mean, if you go to New York today, they still hand out flyers. If you're on a street corner, hey, comedy show tonight. Hey, comedy show tonight. But that's how they really got people to come to a comedy show, was papering the city as much as they could. So we went that night. We got both nights, Friday and Saturday. We went from the Village Gate to the Boston Comedy Club, and which was run by a dear friend of mine, still a dear friend of mine today, a guy by the name of Barry Katz, who is one of the bigger names. Everybody who's in the business knows who Barry is. He's helped so many people with their careers, and actually to this day, we're still very good friends. And I run stuff by him, and he's always right there in my corner. But if it wasn't for Barry, there'd be no Dave Chappelle, there'd be no Louis C.K., there'd be no Nick DiPaolo, there'd be no Whitney Cummings, there'd be no Tracy Morgan.
Yeah.
He was essential in developing and helping all of these people get their careers
So
to where they are today.
he's kind of like a producer.
Yeah, producer, developer. He was the executive, one of the executive producers for Last Comic Standing, and he's just, and to me, he's none of those things. I mean, he is, but he's not. He's just my friend. And so to be able to say that about someone almost 40 years later is to me, is I won. I got the prize, you
Yeah.
know. And so anyway, the manager that night of the Village Gate, I forget what his name was, asked Barry, called him at the second night, Saturday night, and said, where did they come from? Like, who are these guys? Like, they died a miserable death last night and pulled out something extraordinary on Saturday night. And he goes, that's Cato and Martin. That's all you need to know. And so it just was an incredible ride. It lasted for a little under 4 years of us being together. And then This is where we flip the script. So, so I we were about to sign on the dotted line for everything, for film, for television. I mean, it happened so fast, and everything was coming our way. And I was a child back then. I was 26 years old. It was like giving a kid a key to the candy store. I had everything I wanted. Um, rewind when I wanted to be a gangster. I'll never forget the first time somebody put a loaded Uzi in my hand and said, "Do whatever you want with it." And I unloaded the clip into the neighbor's house to the right of me and the neighbor's house to the left of me, standing in the backyard of the person who gave me the Uzi. And nobody called the police. Nobody came out. Nobody stopped us. And I thought, I had this thought so clear, I can do anything I want with this lifestyle.
Right.
When I was on the East Coast, I was going to restaurants because I looked like somebody's son who was connected. And I never said, "Oh, no, you got me confused with somebody else." I loved it. And I would go to restaurants and eat for nothing and never pay for anything. And I would never forget, there was this place in on a it's in Providence. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was on Atwells Avenue. It was right down the street from um, the was called the National Vending Machine. I'm almost certain that was the name of it, which was the front business of New England's organized crime family, which was the Patriarchas. And so the vending machine company was right down the street from this men's store, this Italian store called Zuccolo's. And I bought my first was it was almost like buying a uniform for to become a gangster. I had a shiny sharkskin silver suit, double breasted, that I paid $500 for. And back then they were like $1,500, $1,400.
Wow.
And I wound up paying $500 thinking, oh, all right, I scored. I got this, my first Italian suit,
Yeah.
getting me ready to, enter into this lifestyle. It was like, it was just like you had the look, and this was the first, and I'm like, oh my god, look at me, I'm like Teflon. This is I couldn't get enough of it, and I had the hair slicked back, and I had the tan, and the whole thing. With the pinky ring and the jewelry, I mean, it was just right out of a movie, and it was going to be my life, and I was like, "This is amazing. I want this more than anything." But
Yeah.
fast forward now, when I was doing stand up, I had that feeling again, like I can do anything I want. I never had to pay for anything, whether it was behind the bar, whether it was extracurricular activities. I mean, everything was being given to me that I would ever ask for. No one ever said no, which is a horrible thing to say to a 26-year-old. Yes, 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 yes. It was like, somebody please say no to me, please. And this was my life. And then, but I will tell you this: the more fame I had, the more recognition I had, I became more empty, and I couldn't understand it. It was really mind-boggling to me. I became empty. I was I got lonelier. Things around me started getting dark. Like, the more fame I had, the more recognition I started becoming a recluse, and almost very like Howard Hughes hermit life. I'll never forget. I was walking across this main drag in Boston, and Boylston and Mass Avenue, and there was an old school Tower Records. That's how long ago this was. Right on the corner. It was a major four-way,
Tower record.
and
Yes, that's
yeah,
a
Tower
throwback.
Records, right
That's
across
a
from
throwback.
Berkeley School of Music.
Okay.
And at this major four-way, this van slams on its brakes, no windows, the doors slide open. It looks like it's going to be a kidnapping, the way everything took place. And this van full of college kids scream at the top of their lungs. I was on a date with this girl, and they go, "Dude, we saw you last night. You were amazing, brother. Oh, you were awesome." Running up to me. They left their car in the middle of traffic. And this was happening to me on a regular basis. It was freaking me out. like all the time. And to the point where I started really just, I would go on stage, I'd have my smokes, I'd have a little drink, and I would disappear because I was so petrified. I started getting so fearful of people, and because I hated people. Like I was starting to really hate people for the first time ever. Just because I had no privacy, I felt like everything was being intruded on. And again, like I said, there was this longing inside of me, like, why am I not satisfied? Why am I not fulfilled? And so now we're talking like 92, and this girl that I was dating at the time says to me, hey, I keep running into this woman who led me to the Lord. Now, I've been dating this girl for a year, and she decides to drop this story on me. And she says, I've been dating I've been seeing this woman who led me to the Lord when I was 16. And I'm looking at her going, what language are you talking? What if led to the Lord? What is that? What I don't understand how that sentence is. And she says, everywhere I go, she's there. She's at the grocery store. She's at the bank. She's at the gas station. She's at the CVS. She's everywhere. And she keeps saying, you got to come back. You got to come back to church. God loves you. You got to come back to church. And I'm just like, okay. And then she says to me, I, I was actually at a prayer service where my hands were peeling. She was a cosmetology student. And this is like, 90s. So they used like every poison known to mankind to color people's hair back then. So nothing was like, vegan. There was like vegan hair products. This was like sheer chemistry. And she said her hands were just peeling. And this girl, she didn't have a mark on her, not a mark, flawless. And she says, I went to a prayer service. Somebody prayed over me. I closed my eyes. 5 minutes later, I opened my eyes, and my skin is normal. All the flesh that was coming off it's gone. And I'm looking at her going, okay, let me just tell you something. So this is the kind of story you tell me 2 weeks in. So when I dump you, it's not a big deal.
Ah,
Now we're a year in, and I got to figure out how
yeah,
to lose you like extra baggage.
yeah,
So she says, would
right.
you like to come to church with me? And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And I looked at her and I went, to do. She goes, I just want to know if you want to come to church. And I'm like, for, she's like, to just, to come. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. You know what time? She says 10 o'clock. I'm like, in the morning?
In the
She's like, yeah. I'm
morning,
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh. That sounds like a horrific time to be doing anything. And she invites me to the service, and I just do a rewind again. God has a really very funny way of dropping seed to prepare us for the encounter. So before that, this is March 15, 1992. Before that, in December of 91, I was in New York. I was living in New York and living in Boston. I'm traveling back and forth. And I'm at this party, 22 stories up Times Square. It's models and comedians and drugs and alcohol. And it's
Right,
Babylon. It's
right.
hardcore Babylon. The only thing missing were like, animal sacrifices. That was the only thing missing from
Yeah,
this party. So I'll never forget, a buddy of mine is dating this model, and I got a girlfriend, back home in Massachusetts, and I'm thinking, okay, you know what? Let me try to just be faithful for the first time in my existence. See if I can do that. That was my little challenge to myself. And so, in the process, I see this woman who is ripping the breath out of me. She is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, if she walked in the room today, I couldn't tell you what she looked like, but at that time, she just stopped me in my tracks. And I looked at her and I said to my friend, I said, "Hey, listen," I said, you think that your friend, your girlfriend's friend is like crazy beautiful, and it would be really amazing if I could meet her or talk to her or something." And he's like, "Okay, let me make the introduction." I'll never forget. It was a very young David Spade was at that same party with his model girlfriend. She was like 8 feet tall. He looked like a Keebler elf. You could fold him and stick him in your pocket like an envelope. And so there's all these, like I said, these comics and models, and we had this thing. The comics kept looking at each other, going, every woman that walks through the door is more beautiful than the next. We need to have like an average looking human walk through the door to balance the universe because something's off right now. So this woman and I are, the next thing you know, we're on a balcony, and during the holidays, it's like right around Christmas time, 22 stories up, and she has this southern accent, which is devastating, leveling. It's crushing me because if I had a goal, that was the only goal in my life. I wanted to marry a Southern belle, and
Right.
so I start asking her questions, and she says, I said to her, "So you're not going to be a model your whole life? What do you want to do with yourself?" She says, "I want to be a gospel singer." I'm like, what is that? I don't even know what the word gospel. What is that? She says, "I want to be a contemporary Christian artist." I'm like, okay, again, you're using language. It sounds like English, but I have no idea what you're talking about. She says, "I want to sing in church." I'm like, I'm picturing this girl, this absolutely exquisite international model singing. Now you got to remember, I went to parochial school. So in my mind, I'm hearing her in the back of a church somewhere going, do, mi, so, do, do. Like, I'm like, she's going to be singing Gregorian chants. Why is this girl wasting her life? So fast forward 2 days later, my buddy whose girlfriend was this other girl's girlfriend says to me, "Listen, that girl you were talking to at the party, she cannot stop talking about you." I'm like, "Yes, this is awesome, awesome." Now I'm already planning on dumping the girl in Boston. Right as soon as I heard that, I'm like, "I'm getting rid of this other one, excess baggage. I'm going for the model with the southern accent."
There we go.
And yeah, I'm all heart, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
uh, he says, "There's something you have to know about her." I'm like, "Oh my god!" You could hear the screeches of like traffic in my mind as soon as he said this, and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh!" I was talking to a dude, this, that, and the other. It's just every worst case scenario I could think of. And he says, "No, no, no, dude. She's a born again Christian." And I'm like, "What's a born again Christian?" He knew less than me, looks at me and says on the telephone, I'm not sure, but I think she's Amish." And I'm like, "What? You're going to tell me this girl, international model, is making furniture and her own bread and butter in the middle of a living room in Manhattan somewhere? That's what you're telling me?" And God used that moment to drop the seed of language that I would be hearing in March. So in March, now I forget about it until I have this encounter. Charlie Daniels, who huge country singer, Devil Went Down to Georgia. I mean, mega country dude. Wrote a song in '97 that's the lyrics said, "I ran into a brick wall and his name was Jesus." On March 15th, 1992, that is exactly what happened to me. So I went to the church with this girl I was dating. We wind up going to this little tiny town, beach community in Massachusetts called Hull, Hull. And we're in this church with 125 seats, and there's 11 people in the church. And there I am with the typical hair up to the top of my head. I look like a Spanish kid in play. If you remember Kid in Play,
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
I look. But I look like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Puerto Rican kid in play. And I got the
yeah.
jacket on, I got the t-shirt with the jeans and the boots with the tip. And the girl next to me, she's 5'11". She looks like a model. She got the hair out to here. It's the late early '90s, and um, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden the minister says, if you want to know the free gift of the love of Christ, come forward." And now I go through the Rolodex in my mind. Let's see. I'm making $3,000 a week as a child, as a 26-year-old child. Um, I am. I mean, I got the greatest job ever. I'm about to sign on the dotted line for film and television. I had the career that any stand-up would have cut their arm off for. I got the pretty girlfriend, and I'm actually attempting to get sober for the first time in my life. Life is good. Life is so good. As soon as he said free gift, I went, oh, just going to add that to the mix, and it's free, which is an amazing price point. I love it. So I get up and I start. What he says, oh, that was the thing. He said, if you're visiting for the first time, this is how. So not only was I a child, I was a complete ding dong as a child. I legitimately turned around to see who the visitor was he was talking about. There's 11 people in the room. I'm it, and I don't get it till much later. I get up, I start walking, and as I'm walking towards him, I can feel someone ripping. It felt like somebody was ripping out my heart and sticking in a new one. I was literally bent over in the pain of what I was feeling. The next thing you know, if it seemed like somebody was unscrewing the top of my head and pouring in more love than I had ever possibly known in my life, but knew I was looking for. And now I'm bawling my eyes out. And I hadn't cried in public since I was 12. I was 26. I'm crying, hysterical, convulsing in front of these 10 strangers, 9 strangers. And I'm just like, I can't keep myself together. And I'm just like, what is happening to me right now? And then in my mind, I heard these words, my voice, but I heard these words: I will give you a heart of flesh for a heart of stone. That's Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 26, which I did not know. But I heard this sentence structure form in my head as all this other stuff is happening to me all at once. And I'm standing there before the minister, who to this day is like a spiritual dad to me. Some 33 years later, I he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Son, God wants to use all the talents and gifts that He's given you for His glory." And I'm like, okay, now I flip the script again, and I'm enraged at the girlfriend because I'm thinking she told this guy my private business. How would he know? How does he know I'm an entertainer, or how
How
does he?
does he
Why
know?
would he
Yeah.
say that about me? And
Right.
she's on the other side of the church, recommitting her life to Christ. And so this monumental moment is just bamboozling us both. And I remember we got into the car and we started driving, and I'm screaming at her bloody murder. I'm just like, who are you to tell? I was a very private person. I already told you guys that I became a recluse very quickly. And so for anybody to know my private business was a huge deal. And so she's like, I don't know. I don't know. God must have told him. I'm like, oh, you're going to finger God for this? That's what you're doing right now. You're going to put the blame on God all of a sudden out of nowhere. And 2 packs a day, I'm smoking like a chimney. I was compelled to go back the following week. I had to be there. And then the third week. And then by week 4, I had realized what had happened to me. I actually became born again. And my life hasn't been the same. It was it was crazy because 1992, March 15th, that was a Sunday. For the first time ever, I actually looked up March 15th if there was any significance to March 15th last year for the first time ever. And actually, March 15th is traditionally known, BC, before Christ, in Roman culture as the Ides of March. This is the Day of Atonement, that people would come before the leaders to have their things forgiven, debts or whatever, a Day of Atonement. So, on the traditional Day of Atonement that I did not know, I walked into this church and had my sins atoned for by the blood of Christ on the same day 33 years ago. I just celebrated my 33rd year of walking with the Lord in faith, March 15th. 33. Oh,
Wow.
I know somebody else who was 33. Oh yeah, Jesus was 33. That's right. So it's been ever since. Like, I knew going into this year was going to be something special, and then I ran across Brian, And then, this wonderful opportunity to share my story with you guys. Um, the next thing you know, it's kind of been a domino effect, um, from really March 15th till now. But before that, just before that, right after the new year, I knew something really amazing was going to start happening, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew that God was really going to do something. And I'm 60, so it's not like I'm on the back nine. So if anything's going to get done, probably should happen. Oh, I don't know, anytime soon would be good. And
Anytime soon. Yeah, right.
I begged my partner to join me in this faith walk, and he couldn't. He had a lot of stuff that he was just kind of contending with. And I said, well, I'm done. I found what I'm looking for. I don't need fame. I don't need money. I don't need anything. I just found the love of my life, and his name is Jesus. And I think we can do this together for Jesus. You got to do this with me, dude. And he didn't. So we wound up. I'll never forget this. When I finally made the decision to walk away from that career, I was at a nightclub, about 450 people in the audience, and it was in a little town called Framingham. That's actually a good sized town, Framingham, west of Boston. And we wound up getting a standing ovation, which was very norm for us. So when it didn't happen, it was abnormal. But again, the way we structured our act and the energy and everything else. So they went to their feet, 450 people. I walked down the front of the stage, walking to go to the back of the room, and this waitress walks up to me, who I had spoken to, who she was a lovely girl, a little blonde thing, had the Billy Idol giant hair thing spiked up, and I'll never forget. It's the '90s. She had the Madonna gloves cut off with the fingers, and she winds up saying to me, "Oh my gosh, you were amazing tonight." But out of her mouth, I heard what sounded like Freddy Krueger, Chucky, and Darth Vader mixed in one voice. And I ran to my car with more fear and trembling than I had ever known. Now, you got to remember, back when I wanted to be a gangster, I had no regard for my own life. Like, if I died, I died. No big deal. If I wind up taking somebody else's life, no big deal. But at this moment, I was so gripped by fear because I knew who I was actually hearing. And I'm in the car shaking and crying and shaking, trembling like this, shaking uncontrollably out of fear. And I said, God, show me what you want, because this can't be it. There's no way. And that's when I made the decision to bail from the comedy team. So
Wow.
I kept we had about 6 months of dates, which was literally 6 months, 6 nights a week we had booked back in 1992, which is a crazy amount of commitment.
That's a
So he
lot.
asked me a
Yeah.
lot,
It's a
but I
lot.
always had Sunday open, which was crazy. I had Sunday open. So he asked me, he said, "Hey, listen, can we just commit to the dates and then that'll be it?" I said, "Absolutely. We'll commit to the dates. We already have these dates, and then that's the end of it." And so when it was over, I promise you, I never thought I would ever, ever be behind the microphone ever again. And about 3 months later, this woman comes up to me and says, "Hey, would you want to tell your story? You have a story." And I'm like, "I do?" She says, "Yeah, you have a testimony." I go, "I don't even know what a testimony is." She goes, "You have one." I'm like, "I do? Oh my gosh." Yeah, let me tell my testimony. What am I going to tell them? How you came to faith. And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. I can do that. Where are we doing this?" At the Framingham State Women's Correctional Facility. 200 women, no microphone, no sound system, six armed guards wearing mirrored sunglasses. It looked like a scene out of a prison movie. I mean, it was just perfect, right? With the shotguns and they went to their feet 6 times. I thought it was going to be a prison riot, and I got like no voice because I'm bellowing, I'm projecting in this place with no microphone, no sound system, nothing. This woman comes up to me afterwards and she says, "Whatever you did tonight, don't ever stop doing." The craziest part about that is a year and a half before that, my partner and I, Steve and I, were there doing stand up. I get to show up a year and a half later, a whole new me, the providence of God to set me up like that. It was absolutely miraculous. It was insane. It was insane. It was amazing. So for 33 years, I've been sharing the gospel. Stand up kind of comes out of it. So kind of doing stand up, using stand up as kind of a bridge to the gospel, depending on where I am. I've had the opportunity to do 55 of the 65 colleges in New England, in Massachusetts, actually, doing using stand up as a bridge to on campus ministries. I've done prisons, colleges, schools. So you name it. It's been an incredible adventure. One
You
of my
sound
dear and
busy,
near.
man. You sound
Yeah,
busy.
it's you know what now actually probably more than ever. I had an opportunity to do. It's the name of the channel is Dry Bar Comedy. It's a clean comedy channel. They're in their 16th season. I wound up doing that not too long ago, and actually, it's going to drop. My Dry Bar special drops April 17th, so a couple weeks from now. So that'll be on YouTube for everybody to watch. If you go to the channel, you subscribe to the channel, the Dry Bar Comedy. There's a little place that people can tip, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but when they do the show, they say mention your tipping, and so when you watch the channel on their platform, you're going to see me asking for a tip. And the joke is, I do have somebody in my house who's probably going to go to college, so I need a little help. Make sure you tip me big. And but that'll be available. It'll be on again April 17th. And so you'll be able to watch it either on the channel or you'll be able to watch it on YouTube.
So for
Um,
our audience, where's the
yes.
best place? Yeah, what's the best place or where's the best place to look you up?
So I am as you can tell, but like the audience doesn't know what we went through to put this show together, but I am inept at technical and social media, you name it, because I'm old.
Yeah, right.
So the only place that I have
We got
any
to
type
figure it
of
out though. We figured it
I did
out.
we did well, that was Kevin. I didn't do anything. I sat here going,
That was Kev.
duh, okay, hit the button. Gotcha. Um, the only place where I'm available right now is LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, you can you can see some of the stuff that I'm posting. But that's really it. I don't even have a website, although I do have a friend of mine um, who bought me a domain name. It's Tommy Laughs, but it's not up and running yet. I don't know. We'll see what happens after the dry bar. Maybe things will change a little bit. Maybe I'll have a website. But as far as social media, I'm gonna stay away from social media as much as I possibly can. For me, somebody like myself, it would wind up being like heroin. I would be hooked line and sink. And I know, like, and believe me when I tell you, there are people that have been bombarding me, especially with some of the stuff that's happened. Last year, I was on 7 different flights traveling across the country, more than I ever did, even with Cato and Morin. It seems that my this new career as of last year is like uh, I'm on a hyperspeed, rocket again. Only this time God is the pilot, and I'm just in the passenger seat going, whatever you want to do, Lord. I have no idea what's happening here.
Right.
But
Take the
I mean,
wheel, basically.
I was in Utah, I was in Nashville, I was in Chicago, I was in Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa. So it's just been amazing where God has whatever whatever the enemy gave me before this new career, that him being in charge of it's changed everything. And so I just pray that I keep perspective and allow him to just do whatever he wants to do. So right now, everything's on LinkedIn. It's Tommy, the Manic Hispanic, Morin, Morin. If you go through all my posts, you'll see some of the stuff that pictures of me and Cato from the past, and but that's pretty much my only social media right now.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying it was absolutely amazing having you on and you telling your story.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking at the time. That's probably the most without an interruption that I've ever talked in my entire life. Almost a minute, an hour solid, and I haven't even taken a glass of water. That's
I
and I'm not
noticed
even
that.
parched. I'm not
Yeah, I
parched.
noticed that.
I could probably do another hour. If you want me to do another hour, I'll do another.
Right. Yeah, no water break, man. It's
No water
impressive.
break. No water
No
break. I didn't
water
have to go to the
break.
bathroom. I didn't have to go. If I did water, I would have to go to the bathroom because I'm old. So I didn't.
That's
That's why.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hour absolutely flew by. But yeah, I'm thinking about actually starting another podcast based more on the gospel, and that would be awesome to have you on there.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
So yeah, I'll definitely reach out to you and get you on that one.
Please, please, please do. And I will I'll do the hair next time. I will do the
Okay.
hair. I will do the hair and shave.
Well,
Shave.
we really appreciate that you came on tonight. I know we had our technical difficulties at the
Yeah,
beginning, but after about 45 minutes, we banged it out.
But yeah, God
that,
makes everything happen. Everything
he
works for the
does.
good.
He does. Thank you so much for allowing me to really be here with you guys. I find it remarkable that God would even use um, somebody with that kind of past. You know, we look at all the people that God uses in Scripture,
Mhm.
and they're the least. And I promise you, I was the least. I was the absolute least.
Yeah.
And somehow He decided, well, the least will be used, and I'll do this thing with you because you're willing. And so you know, with true humility, and I'm honored that you guys would allow me to come on and tell my story. So thank you so much. Thank you, both of you.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have you back because there's so much more to dig into, especially the Bible and the gospel.
Yeah, we're just getting started, right?
Yeah, just getting started.
That's the name of the. That's actually the name of the special.
Oh wow.
I'm just getting started, but it has a Boston accent. So started is spelled Staahed. Started.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.